Chapter 39. Until he found himself there, he had not been sure that he could come. He had awakened with a start. He was sweating. His throat was sore. His dreams had been noise, the bird scream of thousands, a shrill wail that would come on like the day itself until his own voice was swept away with it. The street was still in shadow. The grass in the park was wet with dew. He first heard the shots as he trotted through the playground, past the sliding board where he had once rowdied with the guys. From the sound of the shots, pop, pop, he might have thought that the shooting gallery was ahead, except with no pings. Gunshot mixed with its memory of in the picnic grove. He was surprised at the size of the crowd already there. He had not understood how early in the day must begin in order to kill, and watch killed 5,000 birds by nightfall. Someone turning saw him and bowed with a sweep of the hand. "Hey, looks like a Wringer kid here. He must have got up late. Make way." Others turned, smiling and staring. He ran. There was a grandstand like the one at the Little League field, and it was full. He stood beside it. Directly across from the field from him was the ringmaster in his neon pink baseball cap, was directing the ringers. Twice as high as the grandstand and almost as long as mountain of crates housing the 5,000 birds, 4,000 and something now that the shooting had begun. A truck with an elevator platform lifted workmen to the top of the stack. Crates were emptied, 5 pigeons at a time, into 2 white wooden boxes, each about the size of Dorothy's bicycle basket. While one box was on the field, the other was being reloaded with birds. Each box had 5 compartments. Each compartment had a pigeon, and a hatch, and a string to open it. The box master wore an orange vest. The shooters were to the left. They aimed their quarter-sized black barrels to the open end of the field. Here the sound was not pop, it was boom. The waiting shooters chatted and joked with each other, their guns slung like baseball bats over their shoulders. But when a shooter stepped up to the white chalk line, he became all business. His face was grim, his eyes intense and focused on the white box 10 feet in front of him. In this, the shooters were all alike. In other ways, they were different. Some, when they stepped up to the line, shouldered the gun immediately and aimed at the box, as if this were going to be the day to kill 5,000 boxes. Others were more patient, holding their gun across their chest at parade rest until the first bird was released. A few shooters stood at attention, the heel of the gun resting on the ground. There were some differences among the pigeons as well. Some, when their hatch was raised, simply walked out, head bobbing as if it were nothing more than a stroll on a city sidewalk. Others began to peck about for food. Others came flying out, although one, causing much laughter, flew onto the top of the box, and the shooter, sooner than later, than most of them had taken off. In Palmer's memory, recorded during his first visit to Pigeon Day 6 years before, the birds were shot out of the sky above the treetops among the clouds. He was surprised to find now that they did not really happen that way. In fact, the birds seldom flew more than shoulder high to a man before a blast of pellets stopped them. They seemed not so much to be shot, but tipped as tripped. The men might as well have waited by the box and whacked them with a bat as they came out. The pigeons were denied even the elegance of a long fall. Occasionally there was a stubborn bird that refused to fly. It would poke and peck about, perhaps circling the box, perhaps even ambling over to the spectators, who would laugh and shoo it back to the field. But the crowd's patience with stubborn birds was short. Soon they would be calling out, "Toss him!" and the box master would attempt to scoop up the bird in a long-handled fishing net and toss it into the air and run. Boom. If the box master could not catch the bird, the scorekeeper would cry, "Fire!" The bird and the shooter would shoot. Soon, boom, and sometimes the invisible pellets, like a sudden gust of wind, not only killed the pigeon, but kicked it into the air as well, as if to say, "There, you stubborn bird, now you're flying, aren't you?" But shooters who did not like to shoot a walker because even a killed walker was worth no more than a wounded flyer. That is 1 point in the scorekeeper's book. A killed flyer earns 2 points for the shooter, while a wounded walker scored a mere half point. Missing a flyer altogether was sure to bring a round of good-natured jeers from the spectators, but unluckiest of all was when the shooter who completely missed a walker, he faced both a 1-point deduction and a lifetime of ribbing. Once every 4 or 5 boxfuls a pigeon got away clean, missed entirely by the buckshot. It flew over the reaching arm of the crowd and into the sky, circling the field several times, and it was gone. On the table, next to the scorekeeper stood a golden bird, this year's sharpshooter award. The ringers had learned their jobs well, at least. At the feet of the pink-hatted ringmaster, they crouched like sprinters, counting 5 shots. They sprang out to the field 3 at a time, one with a new loaded box, and the other 2 after downed pigeons. They did not wring the necks of the wounded in the field. That would be a waste of time. And the ringmaster was holding a stopwatch and calling for seconds. They dashed back and forth, living and dead, swinging in their fist. Some held the birds by the neck, some by the feet. Some ringers wore wristbands. The ringers were done on the sidelines, and the dead birds dropped into a large, dark green trash bag. Palmer noticed that Beans, Mutto, and Henry always worked as a threesome. Their turn came about every 15 minutes. They never rotated jobs. Henry always did the boxes. When the sun had cleared the tallest trees, Palmer felt a hand squeeze his little finger. It was Dorothy. "Did you eat?" she said. "Your mother said you didn't eat breakfast." "I'm not hungry," Palmer said. They both looked ahead at the shooting field as they spoke. Dorothy did not let go of his finger. With every boom of the shotgun, he felt her flinch. At every neck ringing, she squeezed his finger, and he could hear her breathing. Though he had seen little of Dorothy since she returned from her vacation 3 weeks before, he was not surprised that she was beside him now. Through most of the morning, it had been a relief to Palmer to see that he was ignored by Beans and Mutto. Sometimes the pursuit of a flopper brought one of them within 10 feet of where he stood, but when they went about their business and snatched in a dash and never seemed to notice him, until now. This time, when Beans snatched a wounded bird flopping in the grass, instead of heading straight back towards the ringmaster, he detoured over to Palmer, his teeth even yellower than the sun. His eyes were wild with glee. He thrust the pigeon before Palmer's face, and then Dorothy's, and as he had so often pretended, wrung its neck. The bird's orange button eye blinked. Dorothy's eyes were shut, and she backed away. "I have to go." Palmer caught her by the arm. "Wait!" They stood staring at each other's face, the only place where their eyes were safe. Double barrels boomed, and laughter mingled with smells of mustard and onions and barbecue and gun smoke. He could not wait any longer to ask, "Where did you let him go?" "Nipper," she said, as if she didn't know. "Yeah, where?" "In the city." Palmer was puzzled. "The city? I thought you went to the shore." He had pictured Dorothy standing on a boardwalk or beach, tossing Nipper into the air, Nipper soaring over the sand and the foaming surf. He imagined the pigeon would have a good life at the seashore. "We did," she said. She was not making this easy. "But you just said the city." "We stopped off in the city, and—" A boom. She flinched away. "For a day." He remembered his trip to the city 2 years before. He delighted in the pedestrian pigeons strolling and nodding up and down the sidewalks, right along with the people. That, too, now that he thought about it, was a good life for a pigeon. He nodded. "City, huh?" She nodded. "Did you, reach up and throw him into the air and he flew away?" He wanted to have a clear picture in his mind. "Or did you let him down on the sidewalk and he walked along with the people?" She twitched at the gun boom, and she took a step back. "No, none of that. I rolled down the car window, and he flew out." It wasn't how Palmer would have wished. "While you were driving, or stopped?" Stopped. In the traffic? Downtown? Where? Still trying to picture it. Another gun boomed. She shivered as if it were December and not August. At the railroad yards? Railroad yards? Palmer grabbed her by both arms and squeezed. What? She squirmed. What? Did you say railroad yards? Yes, stop it. She twisted away from him and ran back through the people. Palmer caught her at the back of the crowd and planted himself in front of her. She sneered at him. Tree stumping again? Dorothy, he was screeching. You let him out at the railroad yards? Dorothy threw up her hands. So the railroad yards are where you go to trap pigeons and bring them here. Why did you have to let him go there? A boom was followed by a second, louder explosion of cheers and howling from laughter. Something outrageous had happened. Dorothy stared, stunned, at Palmer, and her lips quivered. We don't know about that stuff. Nobody ever told us that. Nobody in my family shoots pigeons, she was screaming. Heads turned, and Dorothy ran off. This time, Palmer did not follow.